Ah, the Dark Kin indeed. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monday Show. I'm your host, Skari. This is a bonus Patreon show that I do every Monday for patrons. And then every once in a while, I open up the votes. And we have it with all of you here on YouTube and the regular interwebs. So I hope you enjoy. It's a podcast like show where I go over a variety of different topics. In this case, I'm going to be talking about the event I ran this weekend, the ninth annual Berry Bash, and some of the things as a tournament organizer that's important to know and remember. We're going to go over the Patreon questions that I've put up here. There will be a chance for everybody in chat to answer or ask questions as well. And then we go into a look at the stats. Thank you very much to StatCheck for sending me those, who is, of course, Jeremy from StatCheck, who thank you. He's a patron on Discord, and make sure you check them out. StatCheck is literally the go-to place for 40k stats. They are incredible. The website is great. Breaks down everything. If you haven't checked them out already, they're freaking fantastic. Other than that, thank you very much, Jeremy, for sending all that stuff to me. And it's really cool. We're going to break down the juicy 40k statistics as we move on into the show. So, let's get started, shall we? So first and foremost, I wanted to talk about the Berry Bash and, like the good, the bad, the ugly, like everything that happens when running a 40k event. Now, I've been running the Berry Bash since 2012. So this would have been the 11th year of me running the bash every year, the last weekend of February and or the first weekend of March, depending on scheduling. And I will say, it is one of my favorite things to do every year. And over the last 2 years, because of the pandemic, I haven't run an event. Right? I've literally been not doing any events or anything like that, but I love running events. It's one of the favorite things that I love to do. And so I got like a new venue right off the highway, and I was like, yes, we're going to do it. I'm going to have all the tables, all this stuff. And it was great. We basically we had capacity. And we basically filled it up to capacity. There was probably a little bit more room, but I like having more space than not having space. The location was fantastic, right off the highway, like in Barrie, Ontario. Like drive up the highway, so you can literally fly into Toronto if you want, and it's like 30 minutes from the airport, 40 minutes from the airport. It's not too far away, right off the highway. Hello, Maxwell. How are you? Thanks for coming to say hi in chat. And so I was like, good, everything's all set. It's Saturday, Sunday, all that good stuff. So the good part. It was amazing to see everybody back for the Berry Bash. It was really fun. We had everybody that hasn't seen each other for a long time. It's like the vibe of the Berry Bash is literally a old school like Games Workshop Rogue Trader tournament, but with like a GT major vibe, right? Like there's still that sense of pageantry and hobby and all this stuff, which is really, really fun. Happy Monday, Mr. Fish. Wah. Is that more like, wah, it's Monday. I don't like Mondays. That's how I read it, unless an orc reads it, and then it's different. So it was great to see everyone. Now, the first challenge we had was that week was scheduled to have a massive snowstorm in most of like Toronto area, Kitchener, Waterloo, Toronto, Barrie, like where the tournament is run. And most people in Canada drive like an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours to get to events. So the storm was literally going to happen the night before and stop like early in the morning the day of the event. And I was worried that it was going to snow out people and people weren't going to be able to make it to the event, and it was going to be a bit of a pain in the butt. Come the day of the event, the roads are okay, right? They're not terrible, they're pretty bad, but they've been plowed, so Canada has the infrastructure for that sort of thing. And then we get to the venue, or I get to the venue, and the venue parking lot is like not like plowed at all. There's like a foot of snow on this venue, and there's like hills at the venue, like little hills to get up to the parking lots and stuff, and there are cars like literally sliding up these hills. So the most hazardous part of coming to the Berry Bash this year was the parking lot. There was anyway. So that was like the first challenge. Out of all of the things I thought would be an issue when running an event, making sure that your venue has good snow plowing service during winter was not something I thought I had to check. However, now I know to ask, especially if I'm doing an event in end of February, early March, which is when it happens. Because people don't want to have weddings when it's snowing, so venue is a little cheaper. Anyway, so that was the number one thing. The food was decent, had good. We catered food or lunch every single day, so your ticket price included lunch, so people didn't have to leave the venue, so that was really good for folks like coming in, hanging out, eating at the venue, your lunch, etc. Really good. However, the price of an event, if you want to run one, is like 1/3 of the total price I paid was like the venue price, and then 2/3 of the entire price was food. So if you want to like cater food at your venue from like an event space, it's usually the most expensive thing to do, but it is well worth it. Hey Sindri, what's going on? Good news, no snowplow problems, says Market Corn. Oh, no snow problems with you, eh? Well, how lucky of you. Okay, so then we had a great time. One of the coolest things about the bash is people are really chill. I had a giant wall table of prizes. I find prize support is very important at events. If you want to run an event that people enjoy, like give away lots of prizes. It doesn't have to be like big prizes to lots of people. Have trophies, have prizes. In this case, I had a raffle ticket system, so people could like buy raffle tickets to get to like have a chance at winning some of the draw prizes and things. There was a lot of stuff going on. And then we come to a lesson learned. And this is something that I wanted to share with all of you. If you want to be an event organizer and you want to do an event, is read the contract. Okay? So when I booked the event, I was like, I need it Saturday, Sunday. Great. And then I didn't double check the times. That's my fault. In the past, I've been able to just stay on Sunday. I'm like, I'm going to just finish the event. We pack up, we leave. It's like Sunday night, we're gone, all good. So the venue had me leaving at 5 p.m. on Sunday. The event wasn't scheduled to finish until 7:30, right? And they had another thing booked at 7. Like literally, the whole hall we were using at 7 for a different function. Who the heck does that? Number one. Number two, I was so pissed. However, we had to basically cut the event short at 5 rounds. That's my bad. Because of that, next year I'm going to be giving a discount to anybody who was here this year to get a discount on their ticket to make up for it. That last round that we had to cut short. But everybody was amazing, and everybody took it so well, and they were so supportive, and I cannot believe I fucked that up, and it's not going to happen again. However, if you're running an event, double check everything on that contract before you sign it so that you don't make the mistake I made, which is assume that I had all of Sunday to do what I needed to do. So, anyway, that is the topic of conversation. And that's a question that I pose to all of you. Have you ever run an event for Warhammer 40,000? Have you ever sort of considered running an event? What would be like your goal, your aim, and if not, have there been any events that you really enjoy going to, or any events that you've had like an issue with or something like that? Make sure you post it in the comments and let me know how that goes. New opportunities, Scari's event coaching. Yes, now from with new added experience. That's right. But I have been running events for, a good 10 years at least. More than that, 12 years I've been running events on and off. And so this is not something that I would have expected ever to have an issue with. And so even I have learned something new. So hopefully you take that with you and you learn a little bit from that. So thank you so much for listening. And I'm thinking about setting up an event maybe. I've done things like that in the past and it's a lot, so maybe. I love sitting back and watching everyone play, and it's so much fun to see how everyone's having fun. I love playing at events, but I also love making sure everybody has a fun time playing the game that we all enjoy playing, bringing community together. And it's one of the reasons why I love running events. I don't make any money running the event. I break even. Like, I literally just break even. That's all I want. Support on the Patreon page, support from everybody in the community. Like, that makes it possible for me to do this. So thank you so much. Of course, the link for patrons below. If you want to support, that'd be amazing. Okay, so let's dive into Patreon questions, because normally we do this on Patreon as a little bonus show every Monday. So we have folks can either post a question on the Patreon Discord or on the Patreon page itself, on my thread that I put up on Mondays as a comment and stuff like that, and then we go from there. Julius says, "Hey everyone, I'm starting a Drukhari, haven't played my first game yet, saw the live show, excited to hang out." Nice. Welcome, Julius. Thank you for coming to hang out. Starting Drukhari, are you? Well, it's cool. I've been painting some incubi lately. Really exciting stuff. Scary the Chad, says Sindri. The Chad? What? How does that? Am I like? What is a Chad? Is that like a muscly dude that goes to the beach or something? I don't know. I'm old now, so I don't understand your youngling terms. Let's go over the question. Yes, you can definitely play Mono Coven. I took it to the World Team Championship. Ah, the best. Thank you, Sindri. Maguzman asks, question for the Meta Monday. It seems like there is a decrease in people playing Thousand Suns at tournaments. Why is that? Do you think there could be some viability to including Magnus in the ARCS season? Yeah, so there has been a bit of a decrease, and I think that's mainly because of the change to Flamers of Tzeentch. Right, like Flamers of Tzeentch changed, like the damage output and survivability of the Flamers was really good. I still think Thousand Suns have a lot of play, and there's some really, really very strong builds that still involve Demons of Tzeentch, but not really Flamers, it's more with Horrors. Right, so you run like blocks of Terminators and then Horrors. And I think Tzeentch players, you know, like I don't think it's been like mainstream, because people are really showcasing mainstream. Like Custodes are really good, and Space Marine's really good, and things like Genius of the Cult all of a sudden have like this newfound, like an avalanche. It's like a snowball effect where people are all talking about that stuff. So you have diehard Thousand Suns players and Tzeentch players. They're still playing their faction, but other players are like if other factions are in vogue right now. So I think that's one of the main reasons, is because the meta sort of keeps on churning, and there's a high percentage of people, or not a high percentage, but there is a percentage of people that jump from like the coolest thing to the coolest thing to the coolest thing, and they follow the bandwagon. I think that's what you're seeing, is people are like, oh, I don't get Armor Contempt or Crazy Flamers anymore. Okay, I'm going to play Iron Hands right now, right? Or whatever it is, or Space Wolves, because I want like 50 million Meltaguns. And I think that's kind of what's happening. As for the viability of something like Magnus, that's the thing about big monsters. Like Magnus can do lots of mortal wounds and things like that, and he can do some counterpunch and whatnot. The thing about Magnus is, like everything else, he's going to die incredibly quickly at a competitive level. Especially if you go into something like Guard, and they go first, and they just shoot Magnus to death in a single turn, or Votan, or something silly like that, where all of a sudden, your big 500-point character just gets nuked. Now, the only way I would potentially run a Magnus is if in the player pack, or in the terrain set that you're playing on, there's some sort of giant ruin that blocks line of sight completely. It's like a solid wall, no windows, where you can put a Magnus behind him and have him be safe for a turn of shooting. In that case, you could potentially do something like get out, do some mortals, flying back or whatever, moving back and forth if you can still do that, or like keep him safe so that he doesn't get alpha struck, right? And then use him throughout the course of the entire game so he doesn't just get murdered. I think that's the key. Less the is he viable in an army build. I think the same issues that you've had with Magnus in the past are the issues you're going to have with Magnus right now, essentially. Citizen Skari, the champion of the 40Kers. Well, you know, I try. I try to be the best person I can be and the best Archon. Which, by the way, if you haven't watched that really cool Iron Within animation on Warhammer Plus, I highly recommend it. But Magnusman, I hope that answers your question as to the viability of Magnus in the Ark's detachment and why we're seeing less Thousand Suns. Unstable Llama asks, with Genestealer cult troops and icon bearers storming the meta, what do you feel is an efficient tool against respawning units? Well, you have to kill the entire unit. That's the key. You know, if you want to stop the icons and all that stuff from bringing a bunch of models back every turn, it's like playing against Necrons. You just have to pick a unit and just kill it dead. And then when it comes to target priority, you want to make sure that your activation economy is very good. Now, what do I mean by activation economy? I mean picking a unit and shooting it, but making sure you're picking it in the right order so that your opponent can't take models out of line of sight away and things like that. So if you have like a specific unit you want to kill, make sure you focus on that unit and kill it down to a man. Like just destroy it completely so there's no ability for it to respawn. You know, that's the most efficient way of doing it. And that's it. You know, respawning units, the most efficient way of doing it, for example, with Genestealer Cult, is just make sure you kill it dead. That's it. Or kill the banners, right? Kill the icon bearer, and then if you've got the little banners inside, maybe force them to take that as a casualty somehow with like either a coherency check or making sure that's like the closest model, and then keep on shooting that model and make sure you can all see that model so you can't get out of line of sight unless he takes that model away, you know, that sort of thing. So there's like little things that you can do to kind of help yourself with that. But thank you for your question, because that one's more of a like, yes, just make sure you just kill the thing you need to kill, basically. Fish Eyes. It was really nice to see you this weekend, by the way, at the Bash. Thanks for coming and playing at the Bash. Everyone is saying Genestealer Cult is amazing. Possibly the best army. Can you explain why? Yes. So, Genestealer Cult, in order to play the game, you need to score points to win. And in order to score points well, you need to be able to dominate the sort of like pace of the game. And so Genestealer Cult are in a position where they can really dominate the pace of the game very well. They have the pre-game movement and pressure to pin people in their zone, especially if you're running like the 30 like bikes. You just kind of run these bikes right into your opponent's zone, kind of hem them off in a corner, and the rest of your army can just score points. Another thing is they are like we haven't really seen this since the old Sisters of Battle like secondary choices, but Genestealer Cult secondary choices are fantastic, and they can essentially score a lot of points very, very quickly. So combine their ability to score points with their ability to stop you from leaving like your deployment zone, and all of a sudden you get into a position where you kind of like are stuck fighting to get out and to try and score your own points while they're just like scoring all their points, and just you might kill their whole army, but it's not fast enough, because that comes to the next thing. Every single one of their units right now is incredibly points efficient. Whether you're doing a giant horde of Genestealer Cult or you're doing multiple small units, MSUs, we like to call it, in trucks and things like that, which is what Dustin calls the boom bus list, which, by the way, is probably stronger than the 30 bikes list, but that's a topic for a whole other day. And each little unit can do more damage than what it's worth, and it's more annoying to kill than what it's worth, right? So you kind of combine the two, and it's scoring lots of points quickly, it's pinning you in your zone and winning the maneuvering game, and its units trade incredibly well into what we're seeing in the meta right now. And because of that, it's like the trifecta of like powerful combinations of rule mechanics that now mean that playing Genestealer Cult, like we'll see, have a 60-some% win rate. Like we haven't seen that since Harlequins or Tyranids, right? Like they are the new like kids on the block, right? They're going around, they're going to bully the scoring. So just something to keep in mind. That's kind of the three things that are making them extremely effective right now. Good evening, SkaredCast, says Tom. I just started a Drukhari army, having only ever played Tau. I'm focused on making the Kill Team Corsair boxes the theme. Any tips for me, buddy? Well, absolutely. I have the Combat Patrol and Box Corsairs. Get some transports. You need Raiders and Venoms. Yeah. Without that, you will probably get shot off the table. So make sure you get a couple of transports. And don't just hide in your transports. That's probably like the main thing I can give you as a piece of advice. Maxwell says, in terms of Genestealer Cult, I think it also has to do with inexperience playing against the faction for most, since it's been rarely played for a longer time. That is a good point. Nobody has really been playing Genestealer Cult. So everything that they're able to do from a tactical perspective, and let me tell you, Genestealer Cult have like every trick in the book in their back pocket. And so they can pull like every trick out and be like, I got a stratagem for this, and I could do this, and I could do this. And a good Genestealer Cult player will know how to use those inside and out. And a lot of it is like advance and charge, check. Fall back and do stuff, check. Go back into reserve, check. Like there's so many things that they can do. Plus they can deep strike the whole army. They don't have to commit to the table with their deployment. They're just like, I've got blips, so good luck figuring out where I'm deploying stuff. And even the blips mess with stuff, like you can't get close to them. And if you go first, like it's very powerful game mechanics that they have that mess with like how the game wants to be played right now. But yes, nobody's had practice against them, and now the Genestealer Cult are like uprising, so definitely makes sense. But thank you for your question, Fish Eyes. Phil asks, can you talk more about what team tournaments are like in your experience? Are they a lot different than regular competitive events? What things do you have to prepare for the most? The reason I ask is because my friend is running a team for Canhammer and one of their members dropped. He asked me if I want to take their place. It would be my first team and first multi-day event. Fantastic question. So, team tournaments, and you can mark my words, are the best way to play Warhammer 40,000. Without question, team tournaments are the best way to play 40k. They are a little bit different because you can play stuff that is not meta and play it well. Because as long as you have a focus as what you want your army list to do, you can make sure that your army list does what it's meant to do. And you can kind of get away with some really skew style of lists that in like a singles environment would have like very bad matchups into certain armies, so therefore they wouldn't have a high likelihood of winning an event. When you go to a team event, you can like take a list that has like 2 or 3 bad matchups, right? Ideally, 1 or 2 bad matchups, and play it and avoid that bad matchup. So then the strength of that list is sort of heightened by the ability to pair it into something that you want to play against. So if I'm playing my Dark Eldar, I'm like, please don't put me against Tau, right? For example. I don't mind playing Tau because I'll win. But it's more like, they shoot a lot. So if you don't want to get shot to death, or there's a list like you're playing an Ari and you don't want to play against World Eaters because they beat you at the combat game, right? You can tell your captain, be like, just don't put me into the World Eaters. And they can essentially play almost always not have you play against World Eaters. And if that's like your only bad matchup, that's great because you'll never have to play World Eaters ever, right? So that's really cool. Things to prepare for is make sure you have to understand mentality-wise, you win or you lose as a team. There's no individual scores in a team event. If you lose as a team, you can't take it personally on yourself. It's like the whole team lost. The whole team wins. So you could go to a team event and lose every single game, and then your team can win, right? As long as that loss was part of the strategy in how you built that list or how you played that game. I love using our first Canhammer team tournament as an event. We went as Cobra Kai, right? And our chant was Sweep the Leg, which was really, really fun. It was just 4 of us. We're having a good time. We brought a list with 3 Custodes Land Raiders. Okay, this was not a good list. This was back in the day of double moving and double shooting Inari, right? Like back when Inari was cancer. And that was what I was running. But what we would do is we would sort of like put the first defender down and we'd put the custodies 3 land raiders down. And then we'd literally take the one, they'd attack that list, be like, oh, that's going to be an easy win. And then we'd take the one army that nobody else wanted to play, and we knew that custodies list was going to lose every game. But what we did is we manufactured it to take away one of their strongest lists and fight the custodians, because that strong list was probably going to beat any of us anyway, so we might as well beat the list that we know is going to lose, and that gives us a chance to win against all the other stuff. So there's some really cool strategy you can do, and it's a really fun time. Highly recommend you go. If you do fail, I'll see you there, because I'll be there with a stud or a scrub. Daniel says, hi, Scary. Was hoping to start boarding actions and wanted to use grotesques. I was wondering what the min and max you could take with the squad, if you could please. You could take 3 grotesques. That's it. 1 unit of 3. That's all you can do. I have a friend who works for Games Workshop. We have 10th on the way. Sure. Everything is changing. Everything is going to be much simpler. We'll have cards instead of codexes at first. Tyranids are the big bads. Well, Raf, sure. I don't really do any rumor mongering at all. When I have it in my hands and I read it, I will learn it and I will be excited. But until then, I don't care. I'm just going to play what I have in front of me, and I'm going to get excited if it gets released and when it gets released. As of now, I don't know anything about it. So, Market Corn. It's also cool for team events because of the team aspect. That even if you get a bad matchup, you can still do well for your team by doing better than expected and getting a close loss. Correct. Getting every point matters. So if you're good at scoring points, regardless of whether you win or lose, that's really, really good. Scary the Leg. Solid strategy for a team's event. Thank you. I hope that answers your question about that. Last but not least, Mark, you asked a question in the Discord. Says, were there world eaters at the Berry Bash, and how many world eaters did they eat? How many worlds did they eat? They ate no worlds because they got beat. No, I'm just kidding. There were a lot of world eaters. Khorne was well represented. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne, they said. And they went around doing some really cool stuff. They were the talk of the town, actually. Most people realized that they are really, really good, and I think most teams are now making sure they absolutely have a world eater army in their team because of how aggro they are and how many points they can score. It's like the new creations of Bile it fills that role really, really well. Tom says, Scary, what do you think of the new Farsight model? Oh, that model looks so cool. The pictures look incredible. The design of the suit is just awesome. And he's such an old model from, 3rd edition, with, his little sword and stuff. Now the new, super pose, and, he looks like a really cool, anime robot thing. Really neat. I love it. How do you not like Tau aesthetically? Tau suck, but aesthetically, they're really cool. But thank you, everybody, all the patrons, for asking questions. And the final part of today's show is going into a meta-analysis. So a huge shout-out to our friends at StatCheck. Thank you, Jeremy, for sending this in. Every once in a while, you'll send these breakdowns, which is one of my favorite parts of the Monday show, is breaking down stats and what it is now. The StatCheck crew have a website. They run events. They have a Discord. They have a patron. Make sure you check them out. Give them some support so they can continue doing what they're doing, because this is the future, turning 40K into more of a esport, right? We need more stuff like this, and it's great what they're doing. Make sure you check them out, please, and thank you. I love it. Before we go into that, Mikey says, my Archon, hello, Mikey. I'm teaching some inexperienced players 40K with 1,000 points. Yes. Any tips on not smashing them with my Drukhari? Still kind of hesitant after we were the big bad for a while. Just, put stuff in reserve. Don't bring it in unless you have to, right? Send your character out to die in the middle of nowhere. Split your fire as much as possible. Don't focus your fire. Just do all the things that as a competitive player is not the right thing to do mathematically, and try and go for a draw instead of a win. That's how I do it. And then don't confuse them too much with stratagems. Halfman says, will you be joining Team Canada and Belgium for the WTC? Well, I am part of the Team Canada squad. We're not picking the team until April or May. May, I think May. May, maybe June. And we're going to be picking, I think 2 have been picked. We're picking 6 out of 14. No, 6 out of 12. So I hope to be picked. I will be at the singles event regardless. So I'll be there in a supporting coaching capacity if I'm not like picked for the gaming, the team that's playing, based on like what factions are good and things like that. That's going to be the priority, is to make sure we take the best team with the best lists. So I'm there to support the team in any capacity I can, but I'm definitely going to the singles. So you'll see me there. I will be at the WTC. Okay, let's go, and then I'll come back to some questions at the end. So one of the things I like looking at this is, number one, is how many players and percentage of players. Now, these are, of course, our numbers from this weekend of events. So events that happened this weekend, mainly GTs, there are at least 5 rounds, all that good stuff. Single tickets did go up for sale today, 100%. Hello, StatCheck. Speak of the devil. There you go, StatCheck. Clown. Thanks for coming to check. We're going through your numbers on the Monday show. So first and foremost, like Marines, huge percentage of the meta. They have a 50% win rate. You have good players, you have bad players, all playing. It's gonna even itself out, right? So Marines, they're up there, but you are going to run into Marines because everyone is playing Marines. They're just so much of the meta. Astra Militarum having a good weekend. They're the next most represented faction, which is interesting. I feel like from one week to another, it really skyrocketed, and I think that's because now with Leontis and maybe the FAQ had something to do with that, with like them FAQing the book and being like, okay, this is our intent. Yes, you can make as many mortals as you want with Kasserkin, that sort of thing. But they're sitting at a healthy 53% win rate, which is really cool. Custodes and regular Craftold Eldar, are up there, right, as well. They've got over 52% win rate, 54% win rate for Azuriani. We're seeing like even an event win this week. Like, okay, Eldar still has some kick to it. Neat. It's cool to see that. Chaos Demons, with a decent win rate. And then we have Genestealer Cult. Like, they're only 4% of the meta. They have a 63% win rate. They won one event, right? But look at that. They've been placing really, really well. Like, that is the faction to look out for, in my opinion. Then again, Leagues of Votann almost had a 60% win rate this weekend as well, with about the same percentage. So it's like a really small percentage of players, well, not really small, but like a smallish percentage of players, but they're like winning the lion's share. So that gives you an idea of how strong it is. Go forth golden bananas, yeah, Custodes. Now, one of the things I like looking at when looking at these stats, right, is the average victory points versus opponents' average victory points, right? And this tells you how big of a difference the win is. So, because when you're playing the game, if on average the game differential is only a couple of points, it means anybody can win that game. It's relatively basically you have a chance of winning that game. But if you look at like Genestealer Cult, their average points that they're scoring is 82 points per game. Over 82 points per game. And the average score their opponents are scoring is 73, almost 74 points a game. That is like over an 8-point difference. Which means not only are they scoring really, really well, they are denying opponents' score. And that is why we saw this with Harlequins. Like when Harlequins were really good and Tyranids were really good, they were scoring really well, but also stomping on their opponent's ability to score. And when you have that disparity, the win rate just shoots up because of the fact that when you play against those armies, it's hard for you to score points. And that makes it hard to win the game. And, and a lot of the time, that's one of the biggest things. Like with Votann, the average score this weekend was 76 to 69. Nice, but at the same time, it's, that's a 5-point difference. But then you look at other ones, other ones that have like a good win rate. Say, say the Harlequins, right? Harlequins have a 55% win rate. Sure. However, this weekend, their win rate was 76.15 points on average to 76.74 points on average. So it's like a really, really, like, that doesn't make any sense there, but it's a really, really low, like the differential is really low, right? And I think that's really important to take a look at. So make sure you kind of keep an eye out on that sort of thing and whatnot. However, Harlequins, holy moly, they used to be like one of the top 3 armies played. They have like fallen off the face of the earth. Win close, lose big. Exactly, right? It's kind of how that works. Tau, with a decent win rate this weekend. World Eaters as well, coming out in force, with a decent win rate. Drukhari, still only about 2% of the meta, but this weekend had a fantastic win rate with even a list winning a GT, and that's all I care about. So make sure you kind of read through these and tell me what you think. What is the thing that stands out the most to you? I love looking at these stats, and the reason this is important is because you can prepare to go to like a big event and go, okay, what are the odds of me playing certain of these armies? Like in the general meta as a whole, like there's a high likelihood I'm going to be playing against Guard or Space Marines. There's a high likelihood I'm going to be playing against Custodes or some sort of Eldar, and then Demons and Gene Steel Cult because people are winning. If I want to win, I have to make sure I can beat Gene Steel Cult and Votan because they have the highest win rates. So odds are, if I start winning, I'm going to run into one at some point, even if they're a lower percentage of the meta. I'm going to run into them towards the top of the rankings, right? So I'm going to build it with a relic that's good into that matchup, or a warlord trait that's good into that matchup, or hopefully it's not the mission that screws me, that sort of thing. Other than that, that's it. I just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out with me today on the Monday show. Of course, I am Skari, your grateful host. None of this is possible without the wonderful supporters on Patreon. The Denizen community is what makes this possible. So if you'd like to support the channel, the link is in the description down below. Thank you, Josue Arriola. Skari, are you planning to play AOS casual games and tournaments? Thank you for the super chat. It means a lot and really helps the channel. Yes, I am. I do want to go to some AOS events. But right now, it probably won't be till after the World Team Championship, though, because I'm really focused on getting better for playing 40K and really focusing on practicing for the World Team Championship and representing Canada at the world stage. So as much as I play some games like AOS at mini wargaming or whatever, I don't really have time. If I have time to go to a tournament, I'm going to a 40K tournament. I'm practicing 40K. So thanks a lot, everybody, for hanging out with me today. This has been the Monday show, a bonus show I do for Patreons every Monday. And then on Friday, we do List Crunch on Patreon, where you get to submit a list and I get to review it. After all, I've been your grateful host, Skari, signing off until next time. Skari out. Ah, the Dark Kin. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.